This is PJNET.TV, and this is my perspective and comments. In this video segment of My Perspective and Comments, we cover politics, society here and abroad, and the events of the day that are shaping our nation. PJNET.TV, My Perspective and Comment, coming to you with a worldview, one nation under God. Welcome to My Perspective and Comments. And we'll start out again as we have been over a year now. The China, Wuhan, COVID-19 virus, and what has been going on in our nation and things that have been taking place around the world. And I'd like to start out with, hey, they're still injecting those shots in people's arms here in the nation, and we're starting to hear rumblings from our asterisk president here regarding that might be a time frame where we are at a point of making some taking the boot off the neck of the American people somewhat. And so we're looking at May time frame that I guess it's reported that anyone that wants to get a shot will be able to. So we'll see how that time frame plays out. And some of the other voices out there, like Dr. Fauci, he has a lot to say about whether or not we really get back to normal. But we'll talk about that later on. I'd like to talk about some side effects and some deaths that have been reportedly surrounding the vaccines. And one initially has been Marvin Hagler. The latest thought that he died from the vaccine, but we're hearing other reports that really didn't take place. But if you don't know Marvin Hagler, he was one of the great middleweight boxing champs in that middleweight division, and he passed away after somewhat in a time frame close to when he got his vaccine, and he and his wife resided in New Hampshire. And when this initially came out and they thought that it might have been a result of the vaccine, his wife Kay Hagler came out and said no, that this did not have anything to do with that was COVID related. So we have that. But again, one of the a great middleweight boxers in history, Marvin Hagler, passed away. Another, in talking about deaths in the vaccines, about a month ago, a doctor in Florida, after taking a vaccine 2 weeks later, he succumbed. And they're thinking, well, potentially that was some reaction to the vaccine. We're also, we've been seeing in the news over these last couple weeks the AstraZeneca a vaccine that has been suspended in primarily the in about a dozen nations in Europe, and they have put the brakes on that AstraZeneca vaccine, and they're in the middle of right now doing some extensive testing and looking at what's been going on there and the side effect, or what's been taking place with many that have been, or some that have been getting this shot. Blood clots seem to be a reaction to that AstraZeneca. So they're in the middle right now of, really taking a look there. A month ago, when the news reported, when we were talking about deaths, 23, and this was a month ago, that was a news report that came out that there were 23 elderly patients here in the States that had passed after taking the Pfizer vaccine. So there's a lot that's been out there right now that can be concerning, and again, it comes down to people deciding whether or not they want to go ahead and take this vaccine. And I guess the consensus is, if you're in that age range, or you've got some pre-existing conditions that would really drastically cause you harm, should you get infected with this coronavirus, that it might, they're talking about outweighing the cost to not taking it. Might be better to take it rather than not. But many others, especially the young people, that really are not there's no threat to them. It really, at this point, doesn't make sense. But we have many out there right now that are wanting everyone to get vaccinated, and I think what is very disturbing right now is they're talking about 2- and 3-year-olds getting a vaccine, and I think that is totally wrong. I mean, this is the age group from the young people, the kids in school that are primarily asymptomatic, or they aren't drastically affected. In fact, the influenza that we had 2 years ago, that it was really hit the respiratory system in our young people, was more devastating than this coronavirus. So I don't, and again, what we have to realize is that these vaccines have been put through on an emergency basis. That's how they're being administered. They have gone through enough of FDA testing that they've made it available to the world, but these on an emergency situation. And that's what so many people are forgetting. There's still primarily, any type of this major of a vaccine, takes years. And again, we want to credit Operation Warp Speed and getting this through the Trump administration of getting these out there. But we need to step back and realize that those that are not vulnerable, primarily not vulnerable, really should think twice about taking this experimental vaccine. So I just want to say that and impress that we keep forgetting that this still is being administered as an emergency vaccine, and really the jury is still out on what the side effects might be a year from now. So that needs to be said. I want to kind of touch on some New York news, and you probably might know where I'm going here. Our governor here in New York, Governor Cuomo, is still on the hot seat, and regarding the deaths in the nursing homes and the sexual harassment that seven women have come forward and brought the allegations of of sexual harassment and pressure and a lot of the innuendos coming out of his mouth and just some disturbing things. And more and more politicians, Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand, both our New York senators here, have said that Andy Cuomo should step down. And we've heard the speaker in the New York Senate has said that Carl Hastie in the legislature has said that he should step down. So more and more pressure is coming his way. But I heard one of those a member of the talking heads there, a reporter, journalist that had brought up a thought here, and might be a wiggle or a skate out for Cuomo, for him to skate out from under this whole mess, kind of. And that would be he would serve for one more term, and I believe he's up next year, if I'm not mistaken. And he would not run again. So that would be at least his out for this initial firestorm that's taken place around his governorship. But I think at this point that many of the politicians, primarily Democrats, want him gone. And I think that we may see continued pressure brought to bear on Andy Cuomo. So more to see there, and it's playing out right now, and a lot of people, there seems to be a consensus that has surrounded. Even Joe Biden has come out there in this interview with Stephanopoulos there last week and said, if evidence is found, then he should step down. So we'll see what happens. More to come, and there seems to be something happening or some news coming out of Albany, New York, almost on a daily basis. So we'll see what takes place there. The question I have right now is, we're seeing so much taking place in our nation, and we're seeing legislation that's taking place in the in the House and the Senate. We see Pelosi pushing all this stuff. We just saw this COVID package that passed through, and people have said, primarily, wait a minute, the majority of this money did not actually go towards COVID, actual COVID relief that would that would actually help individuals and businesses that are suffering right now. And we've also heard that there was some government bailouts, some state bailouts like New York and California, these states that have mismanaged their state financially, and they ended up places like North Dakota and Texas and Florida that have been running their state efficiently and putting their monies, the monies that they bring in through taxes is being dispersed to strengthen these states. And now they're finding that states that have been fiscally responsible have to shell out more money to these states that haven't been, like New York and California, for instance. So That's what we're seeing here with this Democrat-led House and Senate. Rewarding mismanagement, and really the states that have been fiscally responsible, they have to cover for those other states. So again, we're seeing other legislation that is attacking some of the foundations of our society. We see this cancel culture running amok, and almost on a daily basis we're seeing this individual or that celebrity or that politician being attacked from the left for standing for traditional values and our nation's values, and standing on the Constitution. And now we're actually seeing many of the politicians actually coming out against one. We've seen it already through this past election, the rule of law, changing the law in the middle of an election so that they have an advantage. And we saw this take place under the guise of COVID safety for people that were going to be part of that 2020 election. So we're seeing with the new administration under Biden, we're seeing a lot of stuff that's being pushed right now. This past week, we heard a lot about immigration and what has been taking place. And folks, there is a crisis on the southern border. And I don't care what Joe Biden is fumbling and stumbling and trying to tell America. There's a crisis on the border, and he is the result and the reason why we have an issue in coming up through Mexico. We're seeing right now he is a result of jobs being lost. Like that Keystone Pipeline that was good paying jobs for thousands of workers, and by a sign of a pen on an executive order, no more. We're also seeing that as a result of this Green New Deal coming out of Joe Biden, have you taken a look at your gas prices? It's like SpaceX blasting off. The gas prices are doing the same thing. They're going sky high, and I don't see any correction here unless he reverses course here from embracing of these Green New Deals and hurting those industries that rely on efficient and energy and cheap energy. And we're seeing a drastic rise. And if Joe Biden keeps pushing this, hey, we don't need oil. We don't need the way we generate fuel today, using oil to in our power plants. We'll just throw up windmills and solar panels, and that'll cover our needs. Folks, the reality is that won't cover our needs. And I hope the American people wake up and say, wait a minute, we were a country that under President Trump that was energy independent. And within a month plus now, that is up in question right now, and definitely the more policies that he's enacting with his executive pen, it's weakening and weakening the United States when it comes to being and continuing to be energy independent. I want to at this point. Let me back up a step here. And I mentioned to you regarding Joe Biden not really realizing or unwilling to say that there's a crisis on the border. But the White House spokesperson this week stumbled into what the truth really was, and Psaki Jen was answering questions, and she even said, "Yeah, crisis on the border, on the southern border." And then she had to kind of back up and backpedal and say, "No, no, no." In fact, it took one of the reporters to kind of back her up and say, "Are you saying that there is a crisis?" "Oh, no, 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 no. No, I'm not." So the reality is. We have a major, severe problem on the southern border. And talking about that, I heard this past week what is going on in Texas. I heard that in Dallas, is it KeyBank Stadium? I might be wrong in the name of the stadium, but it's one of Dallas's large stadium. They're planning on having 3,000 plus young men being housed in that convention center for at least 3 months. Now, and it was kind of hush-hush. That was the first I heard of it about 2 or 3 days ago. And, questions that should have been asked, questions that should be out there. In fact, we are starting to hear that. Are these immigrants that they're stopping at the border? Are they testing them? And that's the same question about, well, what's going to take place if you're putting 3,000 plus people in a convention center there in Dallas, and nobody has any answers to that. And more to come on that, but and somehow they were saying that Governor Abbott really has not really spoken to this issue, and it's almost as if the government is forcing these people there. Now wait a minute, Governor Abbott, he's a governor. He can't stop up and say no. Not in my state, and I think he can, but he hasn't, and we haven't really heard too much about that. I will keep my ears to the ground here and see what takes place, and if this outrage picks up and more people say, "Wait a minute, how can this happen in Texas?" And nobody seems to know what's going on. In fact, I heard that they're going to start Saturday. They may have people, young people, coming into that center. So more to say on that, but we're seeing, this type of stuff happen all because this president said, "Oh, I'm eliminating anything Trump had did," and that what was taking place on the southern border was working. And now, you got these illegal immigrants coming up with Joe Biden, shirts saying, "Thank you, Joe, for welcoming us up here," basically to that extent. That it's Joe that's encouraging illegal immigration crossing the border in a crisis situation. In numbers that they're saying, you have to go back 20 plus years to see the amount of immigrants that are coming to the border and crossing over. So we have a crisis, and we can put that directly at the feet of Joe Biden. Now, he's going to try and say, oh yeah, it's, Trump, Trump, Trump. But we know he's not telling the truth on that, because President Trump was working with Mexico, and even the Mexican president, and now this past week even the Mexican president has said, that there's a problem, and that there's an issue here that's taking place there in Mexico. So, a real mess. And folks, I can't see it. At this point, I think it's going to be pretty obvious to those in our country that said, wait a minute, this is a fiasco. And it's a mess that Biden brought to the southern border. And now we just can't limit it to the southern border, because what's taking place in the southern border, they're welcoming them right on into the rest of the part of the country. And we're going to start seeing more and more effects to our medical, our hospitals. We're going to see, the problems that will increase. We already have problems with our schools in getting our kids back to school, and now you're going to add yet another layer on illegal immigrants, illegal aliens filtering into our school. So a big mess that didn't have to happen, but this is what happens when you have a faulty leadership, and that's what we're seeing under this asterisk President Biden. And it's very concerning what's taking place right now in our nation. And what I'd like to kind of shift gears here, kind of on the same area and focus of our nation, and what can be done. What can we do? And I'd like to at this time point out 3 leaders that have spoken up against what we're seeing taking place in our nation. 2 of which are government leaders, and one is a journalist / commentator for Fox News. And these 3 have taken on, what has been, going on here in again, on the southern border. Some of the bills that have been passed, and really to try and put a break and on and some leadership, to bring some leadership to bear when it comes to our governance, and where the president wants to take us, and what they can do, and what can be said to stop that. So these 3 I'd like to highlight right now are Tucker Carlson, Fox News, Tucker Carlson, Ron DeSantis, and Rand Paul. And I've got 3 clips here that I'd like us to watch as they discuss some concerns that we Americans are facing right now. So here, take a look.